She was never meant to win, not really. Not in a galaxy built on bloodlines and legacies carved in stone. She was born from the dust of forgotten worlds, shaped by silence and sculpted by desperation. The moment she touched a lightsaber, the galaxy claimed her, but it never asked her name. It only asked what she could become. They told her she was chosen. They whispered that the Force had plans for her, but destiny is just another word for control. And every time she stepped forward, someone else pulled the strings. Jedi, Sith, rebels, ghosts. They all saw her as a weapon, a prophecy, a placeholder for someone greater. Never as herself. She ran through ruins looking for answers, and only found echoes. She stood in the shadow of heroes and tried to breathe. But the air was thin, the light was blinding, and the truth was never hers to hold. Her story was rewritten by every hand but her own. And every time she asked who she was, the galaxy handed her someone else's name. We applauded her strength while ignoring her sorrow. We praised her victories, but never questioned the war. She smiled with cracked lips, fought with shaking hands, and stood tall while the weight of 2 empires pressed against her chest. And when she whispered who she was in the end, we cheered. But we never listened. She wasn't the answer. She was the cost. The sacrifice buried beneath legacy and loss. And even now, when the dust has settled and the saga has closed, her voice still trembles in the silence, because no one ever asked what she wanted. No one ever gave her a choice. She was always reaching, always searching, always trying to matter in a story that was never truly hers. In this video, we're going to break the illusion. We're going to trace the pain behind the power. We'll explore how Rey's journey was never one of triumph, but of tragedy. A tale of identity lost beneath the weight of myth. And by the end, we'll understand why she was doomed from the start and why that might have been the point all along. She was no one, and that was the allure. A scavenger from the sands of Jakku, forgotten by history, erased by lineage, and shaped by silence. The galaxy didn't look for her, didn't wait for her, didn't even know she existed. And yet somehow, we were drawn to her story, as if the Force itself whispered her name in the dark. We didn't ask who she was, we asked what she might become. She ran toward the legends, thinking they'd have answers. She clutched at myths like lifelines, convinced that somewhere in the ruins there'd be a reason for her pain. She idolized Luke, envied Leia, echoed Han, but none of them gave her the truth she sought. They gave her roles, gave her tools, gave her burdens, but never the clarity of self. She was shaped not by love or purpose, but by proximity to greatness. Every mentor she found was broken. Every guide carried ghosts and agendas and expectations they didn't know how to voice. They didn't see her, they saw who they needed her to be. To Leia, she was hope in a dying war. To Luke, she was a warning he ignored too late. To Kylo, she was a mirror he couldn't shatter. And to Palpatine, she was a vessel, nothing more. What if Rey was never the hero? What if she was the echo of others' regrets, molded into a weapon, carved into a symbol, used in a war that never truly ended? She never got the freedom to ask who she wanted to be. But beneath the light, there was always confusion. Beneath the strength, there was always a question. Who am I if I'm not what they tell me? Who am I when the war is over? And why did no one ever stop to ask her if she even wanted to fight? The galaxy cheered her on while feeding her lies. It told her she was special, but never why. It dangled power in front of her without offering peace. It called her chosen while stripping her choices away. She never had the space to grow and the pressure to endure. They dressed her pain in prophecy and called it progress. Every trauma she faced was repackaged as character growth. Her suffering was sanitized by the story, painted as a necessary path to power. But that's not how healing works. That's not how identity is found. Even the audience was complicit. We wanted answers so badly, we stopped caring about meaning. We demanded she be a Skywalker, a Kenobi, a clone, a Palpatine, anything but herself. We couldn't handle her being just Rey, because the galaxy we loved was built on bloodlines, on legacy, on destiny carved in stone. She never got to mourn the life she lost, because she never had one to begin with. Her childhood was a blur of heat, hunger, and waiting for parents who'd never return. That kind of abandonment leaves scars no lightsaber can cauterize. It leaves holes that even the Force can't fill. Rey carried loneliness like armor. She smiled through silence, laughed through longing, fought through the ache of never being chosen. And when people finally looked at her, it was always through the lens of what she could do, not who she was. That's not connection, that's possession. She found fragments of family, but never a home. Han gave her warmth, but vanished. Leia gave her guidance, but died. Finn gave her friendship, but was pushed to the sidelines. And Kylo gave her chaos dressed as destiny. Every relationship was fleeting, every bond severed before it could bloom. She didn't get the luxury of stillness, of joy, of growing older with people who saw her as more than a symbol. She fought through wars. She didn't wage and stood on ruins. She didn't build. And still, we applauded her strength while ignoring her sorrow. There's something cruel about praising resilience without offering relief, about celebrating survival without ever preventing the suffering. Rey didn't just lose things, she was never allowed to have them in the first place. And yet, through it all, she shined. Not because she was perfect, but because she endured. She rose from the ashes of everyone else's fire and forged something steady in a galaxy that refused to be kind. Her strength was never in her power, it was in her persistence. She stood before legends and never blinked, faced down Sith Lords, broken Jedi, fractured rebels, and still found ways to believe in goodness. That kind of belief is more powerful than any force, lightning, or saber clash. It's the kind that heals quietly, slowly, honestly. Rey had every reason to give up, to vanish like the rest, to let the darkness in, but she didn't. She didn't because somewhere deep inside, she believed the fight was worth it. Not the war, the fight for identity, for connection, for meaning. Even when the story failed her, she made the most of it. She saved what she could, loved who she could, carried the weight of names she never asked for, and still moved forward. That's not weakness. That's something divine. She shouldn't have had to be that strong. The fact that she was is something unforgettable, something holy. A quiet awe that lingers long after the credits roll. Maybe her story wasn't about legacy at all. Maybe it was about rewriting the rules. About choosing who we are, even when the world tells us otherwise. Maybe the galaxy's greatest act of rebellion is to choose your own name. Rey Skywalker isn't a lightsaber decision. A flawed, desperate, beautiful decision to mean something in a galaxy that kept trying to erase her. It wasn't about blood. It was about belonging. About finding light in places no one thought to look. If her journey teaches anything, it's that identity isn't inherited, it's built. It's clawed together from kindness, from mistakes, from silent victories no one else sees. And maybe that's the lesson the Jedi forgot. Maybe that's what the Sith feared. We don't need to be born into greatness to do something great. We don't need permission to matter. Rey didn't get her power from prophecy. She got it from persistence. And in a galaxy drowning in fate, that might be the most powerful thing of all. Hope isn't about destiny. It's about choice. And Rey chose, even when the choices were cruel. That choice alone means something. Maybe everything. But even now, it haunts her. Even now, the silence echoes louder than the cheers, because the galaxy never truly saw her. Not as a person, not as a girl who just wanted to belong. They saw a solution, a symbol, a sword. And that's the tragedy no one wants to say aloud. That Rey's strength was born of absence. That every powerful moment came at the cost of something soft. That the girl we cheered for was always alone. Even in the end, she deserved more than applause, more than a borrowed name. She deserved to live without proving herself at every turn. She deserved to cry without consequence, to rest without guilt, to love without fear of being taken. She was a story told backwards, a girl turned myth before she got to be human, and the saddest part is, we let it happen. We let the Force consume her before she ever got to become herself. Rey was doomed from the start, and maybe that was always the point.